Hello sweet beans, my name is Soleil and welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about all of the movies that I watched in January of this year. I saw quite a few movies. Some of them were rough, others were wonderful rewatches, others were a breath of fresh air. So without further ado, let's talk about them. We started off January 2nd with Baby Girl, starring Nicole Kidman and that one guy. This movie was rough. This movie was rough to say the least. Listen, I knew what I was in for a little bit. I thought it would be a fun time. I went to go see it with my friend LB and yikes. This movie leaves a lot to be desired. It's not fun, romantic, sexy like we were expecting. It was just kind of cringy and weird, and it's very unclear what the intern guy who's trying to seduce the CEO, played by Nicole Kidman, it's unclear what his motivation is, what he actually wants, if he's actually like into her, if he's into power, like what is his actual motivation in this movie? Unclear. The man has absolutely no personality. He's just kind of a plain slice of American cheese who's there for the plot. But what is the plot? Also a little unclear. It's just kind of Nicole Kidman being like in her late 50s and getting Botox and trying to like rediscover her sexuality in a new way with this spicy romance with an intern, and like that's it. But like all of the spicy scenes weren't actually like spicy. They were just kind of like uncomfortable, and it was just weird. It just wasn't like the fun gals night movie that I thought it would be. But it was a really good time to see it in a movie filled with women and some random men also in the mix. So that was lovely because all of the women, there was like a whole row of us and we were all like, oh, at like certain parts, and then other parts we were like, and then we would look at each other and be like, and there are other parts where we're like, so the experience was kind of a good time. Terrible movie, 2 stars. Next up, I saw Nosferatu, which I wasn't going in thinking I would love it. And I was right, because I didn't love it. I didn't enjoy it too much. I had a good time in the movie. It had some definite ups and downs. This isn't really my type of film, so I'm sure other people who are more into this genre of more, I don't know, I feel like there is a name for this genre of, it's not like really creepy thriller suspense. There's like something more of this Victorian vampire, like, I don't know, the vibe of this film feels very specific, and I feel like there must be a genre, like a subgenre for that, you know? But Nosferatu, I mean, he was just a weird little dude. Like, I saw this comparison before I saw the film. If you don't want this is not a spoiler, but it will ruin the seriousness of the film for you, so you know, if you haven't seen it, feel free to skip this like 10 seconds, skip ahead 10 seconds. But I saw comparisons of Nosferatu's mustache to the evil guy in Sonic the Hedgehog, played by Jim Carrey. For the entire film, I could not unsee it. Like, that was permanently stuck in my mind, and that was rough. That was a lot. Also, his nails. There's at one point, like, you see his whole naked body and you're just like, This one, again, I felt like the characters were bland and they just didn't have a lot of personality. And the plot was strong, the plot was really interesting, the vibes were 100% there. It was very much like creepy, sickly Victorian child vibes. And I just didn't care about any of the characters. Like, if any of them died, did not care, you know? And that's fine, I guess. So I gave this 3 stars. Oh, also, Nicholas Hoult is always typecast as a snivelly little bitch, like every time. It's amazing. And Nosferatu definitely needs an inhaler. That's my full review. Then I rewatched Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. Love this movie. I did watch this as a themed movie night with my friends. I made a bunch of themed movie snacks and little like Rice Krispie treasure chests, some gold chocolate coins, some sushi of the sea, some little swords made out of pretzel sticks, like the full 9 yards. This movie, beautiful, was a rewatch, love it, 4.5 stars. Then I watched A Real Pain. This is starring Kieran Culkin and what's that other man's name? Jesse Eisenberg. Yes, Kieran Culkin and Jesse Eisenberg. So this was basically an emotional glimpse into the lives of 2 cousins who decide to take a trip to Poland to explore their heritage and specifically feel a little bit closer to their grandma, who was a Jewish refugee who had survived in one of the concentration camps during World War II in Poland. This movie was dealing with a really heavy topic, and it touched on that topic beautifully in moments. Like, this was specifically a like Holocaust remembrance tour for people who had Jewish ancestry, who were Jewish, who were Polish, who had some kind of connection to this time in history, specifically in Poland, and wanted to go on this tour. So obviously there were a lot of really heavy moments that they dealt with beautifully, but there was also so much like time of them coming together and so much warmth and laughter and just a lot of like really uplifting moments. And it just kind of dealt with those 2 different sides of this movie beautifully. And it was just so good. And these 2 cousins are polar opposites. Both of them have such vibrant characters. They have such funny conversations. And they treated these moments so beautifully, and it was great. So this was 4 stars. Loved this movie. Then I rewatched Inkheart with my friend Claudia, who had never seen Inkheart, who was specifically looking for a whimsical movie recommendation, and this was one of like 8 that I suggested as options, and we watched it, and it was a good time. I haven't seen Inkheart in at least 10 years. Maybe 15, if I'm being honest. I read the Inkheart books. Actually, I read like 2 out of the 3 books. I never finished the series, which is hilarious because I loved it. But I read Inkheart when I was younger. I loved the movie. It stars Brendan Fraser, and I was obsessed with it. It was amazing. I loved it so much. My obsession and love of ferrets comes from Inkheart and Dustfinger and Gwen. And I haven't seen it in forever. So does this movie hold up? A little bit. We still had a good time, but it definitely feels like a 2010 film, which is fine. It is what it is. So I had a good time, honestly. 3.5 stars. Then I watched A Complete Unknown, which is the biopic based off of Bob Dylan's life, and it specifically is looking at 4 years at the beginning of his career trajectory, I think. So I know absolutely nothing about Bob Dylan. I couldn't name a single Bob Dylan song for you right now. There are Bob Dylan songs that I do enjoy, but like I'm not much of a fan. But this looks like a really interesting biopic. Was interested to learn more about his life, hear some of his music, see Timothée Chalamet's performance. It looked good, and it was good. I really enjoyed it. He was kind of a douche for most of this film, which Bob Dylan himself said that Timothée Chalamet like really nailed the performance, so I guess that was accurate at the time, as far as we know. So yeah, I don't know. Him as a person, like who he was in the film, but Timothée Chalamet's performance was incredible, as was, what's her name? As was Elle Fanning, and Monica Barbaro, amazing, and Edward Norton, also amazing. Just a lot of the people in this film did an amazing job. Really loved their performances. Like overall, him as a person in the film, he doesn't really have much of a personality. I wasn't really enjoying most of the music that he was playing. Like, it was not for me. There was one song that I really liked, but I don't know, it was his earlier work, so I didn't really see like the musical appeal of it, but I enjoyed the film. So the film itself was 3.5 stars. Oh my gosh. Then I watched Culpa Mia, also known as My Fault. It is a Spanish language film on Netflix, and this is in the genre of trashy romance. Basically, a young woman moves to, is it Greece? I can't remember. She moves somewhere with her mom after her mom has remarried. You kind of get a couple of hints throughout the film that her father is now no longer in their lives. You don't really know what happened there, but you get a couple of glimpses of like the trauma that they endured and like the lingering PTSD that she still has. And then they arrive at her mom's new husband's house and her stepbrother. And she meets her stepbrother and she's like, oh, he's hot. And you're like, oh no. Oh no. Oh yes. Yeah, so she falls for her stepbrother and he falls for her, and that's the subject of this film. It is what it is. Yeah, it was, that was rough. There's a really great like car racing scene, which as a fan of F1, I was really thrilled by. Yeah, both of them kind of pissed me off in different ways, but honestly I was entertained. And it was actually a solid film. There was a whole car chase scene at some point. I was thrilled. This was 3 stars. Believe it or not, this was 3 stars. Does it deserve 3 stars? Probably not. But I was entertained. So I rated it 3 stars. Then the last movie I watched in January was The Brutalist. So I saw this at a local independent movie theater because I wanted to watch this during the week, and this was a 3.5-hour film. So I looked at 4 different movie theater companies in the city of Washington, D.C., and their respective movie theater locations added up to 10 different movie theater locations in the Washington, D.C. area. And of those, there was a singular time that started before 7, or honestly, all of them, like the earliest showtime after work hours was like 7:30, which means I wouldn't have gotten home until like 11:30, maybe midnight, honestly. Like there was an intermission with previews, with getting home, like I wouldn't have gotten in bed before midnight. So I finally found one that started at like 6:15, and I was like, that's the one I'm going to, at a local independent movie theater that I absolutely love. And 3.5-hour film, right? I got there a little bit early because I went right after work. I got some snacks. I like piled up on my movie snacks because I was in that movie theater for 4 hours, including the intermission, including the previews, like more than 4 hours. I did not get home until 11. So about this film, the first half, amazing. Wow, blown away. Oh my gosh. The second half, weird. A lot. I did check my watch to see how much time I had left multiple times. I do think the full runtime is worth it. I don't think they could have shaved anything off, maybe some of the weird sex scenes, because they were weird. I read a review before I saw the film and I was like, what do you mean weird? Yeah, weird. Just the circumstances, weird. If you've seen the film, you understand. You get it. If you haven't, Go watch it. You'll agree. You'll know what I mean. You'll know. So the acting was great. The story was interesting. It dealt with a lot of different topics of kind of like lingering trauma, because this happens during World War II or right after. I think it's right after World War II. Maybe a little bit during too. I'm not sure. I don't remember the timeline fully. And there's a lot to do with like family connections, getting people out of Europe, but then also architecture and trying to survive as a new immigrant in the United States as a refugee. That was really fascinating. And this film dealt with a lot. And honestly, I love Felicity Jones as well, but like her character was also a little weird. Like, I don't know. The second half was just rough. I was glad when it was finally over. The last scene was okay. But I honestly, I just sit there for like 10 minutes after the film ended. I anyways like to watch the credits, but like at this point it was like 11 p.m. But yeah, it was like 10. It was like 10 something p.m. But I didn't get home until 11 anyways. But I like had to sit there and really think through what I just witnessed. Yeah, it was wild. So those were all the movies that I watched in January of 2025. Let me know what you watched in January, if you saw any of these movies as well, if you agree with any of my opinions, if you vehemently disagree. Please let me know your thoughts, and otherwise I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye!